Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Kalin. How are you doing, Kalin?
Hi, good. Nice to see you.
Fantastic. So this is SEO Mastery Summit Q&A around expired domains with Kalin. And Kalin is the man behind SEO.Domains, and they sell lots and lots of domains and have lots of domains. And today we'll basically go through and share some of all the questions we've had around expired domains and so on. So again, from the viewers, I can see we already had a good bunch of people joining. So for the viewers, again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the live stream, and we will get around to as many as we possibly can. So the first question that was very interesting, Kalin, was from one. It must be someone checking out your website or so on, and he said, it's showing on your website that you have more than 20,000 domains. Who own these, and is it possible to sell domains through you or through your business, I guess?
We own all the domains. Actually, we own about 60,000, not 20,000, but the rest are not SEO value. They're just good names or traffic ones. So it's quite hard managing so many domains, of course, and the renewal fees add up. But we are a lot of people and have very good economies of scale, very good prices in which we get and renew the domain. So it actually is possible to own so many domains. And if you are more familiar with the domain industry, you wouldn't be surprised because, for example, the company that owns dropcatch.com and also huge domains, they own 2.6 million domains. So it's big portfolios are nothing strange in the domain industry. Ours is actually not even big. Well, we have a lot of our own domains, so we're not very motivated to resell other providers' domains. But if you have a domain and you're looking to cash out, we can buy it directly, not resell it, but just buy it, and with the go selling it later.
Okay, interesting. So you do have a little bit more domains than I have, for sure. So I thought I was bad at hoarding domains, so that's good. Right. The next question from a guy called Jasper, and he's saying, do you think it matter how long ago the site was active? I found a site that had over 100,000 traffic in 2009 and haven't really had much since. Is it still a useful domain, or what's generally your thoughts on that?
I think it really depends if the website lost its traffic due to a penalty or something bad happening, or maybe it just lost it because it was down. And also, if you're planning to restore the old website, obviously the sooner it was live, the better. But if you're planning to just use it as a PBN or put some new content on it, then it doesn't really matter that much. Some of our domains were expired 20 years ago, but still have links. The good side on this is that if the domain expired recently, the link loss velocity, like the ratio at which it loses the links. In the first year, it may lose about 30, 40, 50% of its links if it expired after being active very recently. But if it expired 15 years ago, it won't lose any links. It already lost all the links that it could lose. So you're not going to see a lot of link loss after this. So domains that expired a longer time ago have this benefit. And if you're not planning to rebuild the website, I don't think it matters that much. If you're planning to rebuild the website, the further away the website existed, the worse the technology, the responsiveness, all of this it's going to have a very, very retro design and code. So it likely won't rank if you're looking to rebuild and build some traffic on a website. Then it's not going to work because we have restored from the archive some really old websites and they don't get much traffic. You have to restore onto WordPress or improve the structure somehow to get traffic. But if you just want to link traffic is not so important, so then it can work with old ones too.
Yeah, one thing I would definitely also consider is, if the domain dropped like in 2009, so you're correct, you won't have any more link loss now, but you could actually have lost a lot of links between 2009 and now, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. So
but
that's
you're buying the domain based on the links it has now, and then also the market price will reflect that. So that shouldn't bother you.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I can see Path saying hello. How we're doing? We've got to connect. Yes, we're all very happy. So what are you looking for when looking to find a good expired domain?
Well, for a start, we're not finding the domains. We already know about all domains that are expired and expiring. We have put a lot of effort into database compiling. So we have a larger database than, say, expireddomains.net, or I haven't really compared with Spamziware and the other database-related services. But we have a very big database. If a .com was registered in, let's say, 1998 and dropped in 2004, we know about it, even if there's no activity since then. And most country domains that have any links to them, we also know them. So it's our job is just a very tedious task of monitoring the domains. Some extensions don't have any dates that can really help you figure out when it's going to drop. The ones that have data, of course, more competitive, because then they go into expireddomains.net. Everyone sees the date. So it's a lot of small evaluations, evaluating the cost of registration or catching or bidding somewhere, and the potential sale price, depending on the quantity and quality of links, the niche, the country. If the name has any value, maybe it has also traffic, residual traffic. So it's a lot of things we evaluate. But the simplest way you can do it after you have a database is just a big sort to just prune the ones that have just zeros, which are 90% that don't have any links, any traffic, name is bad, and so on. And then the rest you have to evaluate manually, because let's say 8 out of 10 are bad, but then it has 10 decent links and the niche is casino, and then market price is $500 all of a sudden. So you just need to look at them manually. You cannot just sort the bad ones out once you have removed the really useless ones.
Yeah, and that's I think that's from our perspective. I mean, we've dealt a lot with domains, right, and both expired and also existing auction domains and so on. And then there's definitely a lot of filtering in it, right? There's definitely a lot of you don't want to sit and manually look at a million domains, that's for sure. Right. So, hey guys, just jump on. So don't know if this has been discussed, but more people go online. Is .com holy, and will it increase value importance, or will it decrease because of .infos and .everything else, basically? So I think you're basically asking is if the value of .com domains is decreasing because you have all the other extensions coming in, or
No, definitely no. It's increasing actually, because more and more businesses going online. Now this is speeding up even more after 2020. And .com will always be the king, as many domainers call it. The ones that are losing value because there are more extensions coming are exactly .net, .org, .info, the legacy second, third, and fourth choice extensions. And .com is growing in value. .io is also growing in value. .io was recently sold for $175,000. It was metaverse.io, not really special sounding, but someone really wanted it. So .io is becoming a major target for startups. .co is also selling quite well, almost as well as .io, but it doesn't get so much attention because it's not so startup popular. But still, the main ones are gonna increase in value. I think The new ones, dot everything. They were
No,
called.
I think you basically mean all the other, like,
Yes,
because there's
yes,
so many
the
nowadays.
thousands of new ones. The problem with those is that the actually good names are premium. So, for example, we have SEO.Domains, but it's not a domain that you can pay that you can buy at the normal price of .domains. It costs more. It either costs more for the first year, which is bearable, or in some cases for every year. So then renewals are can be hundreds or thousands of dollars, and it's just getting more expensive. All the registries, the .domains, the .anything, were created by domainers, people in the domain industry who know how to sell domains, and the best way to sell domains, premium domains with good names, is by waiting a very long time for the right buyer. 5, 10 years, no one cares. Renewals are cheap, so you just keep it, put a 100,000 buy now price, and wait for the right buyer, which means that the psychology of all of these registries is just to have their best names at premium and wait for a long time at a very high price, which means that you will never find a very good word dot another word available at the normal price. It's very, well, sometimes they're very good combinations. For example, we have safe dot space. Safe is not a particularly interesting word, but safe dot space is a very good combination of words. So in this case, it was not premium, but these are quite rare.
Yeah, and I was about to say, like, there is some company combinations, like also if you have a certain company name or something, that there's certain things that can work, but just sort of premium and sort of one small word, like 3 letters and stuff, like most of those are very difficult to get your hands on, right?
Yes, and also if you're thinking about XYZ, top and all of those popular ones, keep in mind there are a lot of promos for those and a lot of abuse, and Google really doesn't like them. I think the machine learning is spotting all the bad examples, and even if you do nothing shady, it will be like .info in the old days, where you start with a bit of distrust.
Yeah, and I've seen that as well. I mean, we registered a couple of domains that was maybe $10 or $20 the first year, and then second year suddenly $200 or $300 a year, whatever. So obviously, if you already spend a lot of time and effort building a site on it, you're gonna pay it. But yeah, right. So Path is asking how much time it usually takes for an expired domain after doing a 301 redirect for the link used to transfer.
So if it ever transfers, you should be happy, because sometimes the answer is never. But it differs from like very quickly, like in days to months, but it can also be never. So it's important for it to work at all. I think that the speed is not that important. Actually, I think that the slower you make the steps leading to the redirect and the actual redirect, the better the chance for it to hold at all. So first restoring an old website or the same website and maybe doing a canonical, and just trying to somehow to convince Google that both the websites are the same, the money site and the redirected site, and then only then redirect. So make it slow. I think it's the thing that will work for the future.
Yeah, it's so my experience is definitely starts to take longer. So I'll say previously when we did 301s with expired domains, like a lot of them sort of 1 to 2 months would come give the value. But I have to say nowadays sometimes it's often 6, 7, 8 months. So yeah, it really depends. So right, do old backlinks, etc. 2012 still add value when doing an expired domain project?
Well, I think if the is old and it was like for 8 years, it's a great backlink. It still exists, so it's not really old. It still exists. But if you mean domains that have only old backlinks because the domain was down for a long time, then we already discussed this in the first question, that it's perfectly fine in most cases.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is. This is from a guy called Derek. So he's saying, what's the minimum trust flow you look for when looking to buy an expired domain?
Okay, so now trust flow is the worst of the major metrics because it really wants to achieve something good by design. So the Google trust, as we suspect, or no, I don't know how certain this is, but we assume that Google puts a certain trust to websites that they know are legitimate, like BBC or whitehouse.gov, and then if you're in one or two links from those domain wide, then you get some of this trust. So the trust flow is kind of has this idea, but the bad thing about it is that they take the trust flow on a page level, not domain level, and then somehow aggregate it to get the domain one, which is a very wrong concept in my opinion, and it leads to huge anomalies. And trust flow is the only metric that you cannot rely on, because in Ahrefs DR, if the Ahrefs DR is 0 or 1 or 2 in most cases, you know that the domain is bad. So you can outright just throw away most of the domains you're looking at. If they have very few links or just spammy links, then just the Ahrefs DR is very low. Also with most, if you have below 15, also in most cases below 20, the domain is bad or weak. But in trust flow, you cannot really use it for anything, because when a good domain can have trust flow 0 and a very useless domain can have a trust flow of 28, which is logarithmic, so it's like thousands of times the difference, then what can you actually use trust flow for? It's useless in my opinion. Nothing it really shows, because you cannot trust it.
So it should be called don't trust flow.
Yeah, it's actually, it is a metric for something. The more it actually is for most metrics is the same. The more site-wide links you have, the more trust flow you have usually. Okay. Also the same for VA, and especially for DR. If you're a web design studio and build 10 small websites, you already got DR 50 in Ahrefs, because not a lot of other outgoing links. You collect all the juice of these small websites and it just pumps your DR very hard.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I look at the metrics, some people are like, oh, I don't look at them at all. So the way, I mean, I use Ahrefs a lot, and also SEMrush and so on, right? The way I look at them is that it's all about sorting, right? When you're looking at existing sites, you want to do the 80-20 or 90-10 or whatever, right? So the way I look at it is, if a site doesn't have at least DR10, it will most likely not have a ton of great links, right? Now, there's probably one or two out there that does, but the whole thing again is I don't want to manually sit and look to 2 billion domains, right? So for me, I more look at these different metrics as kind of being able to sort out and figure out, like, is there any sort of which ones are actually worth spending a little bit of time on, right?
Well, yes, sort of. We have looked at many domains in many different countries, like hundreds of thousands. And what we have found is that there are patterns. So metrics used in context are actually more useful than people might think after just looking at, let's say, 5,000 domains in mostly .coms, mostly with US links. The thing is that these metrics, they behave in the same way within the same ecosystem. So, for example, for all news websites in a certain country, they have more or less links from each other. So then if they don't get a lot of other links to pump up their metrics, then all of them are going to have lower DR than they should, but they're still good news websites, let's say Google News, and perfectly legitimate. But then you have to know, you say, oh, okay, this one, it has, let's say, links only from Ukrainian news sites. So it has DR4, but I know that actually this means nothing if it's a Ukrainian news website. So I just ignore that signal and look at the actual links. And this is one side of it. So there's context. And the other side of it is that when you're looking for expired domains, whether available or want to buy them at buy now or auction. You don't do this in a vacuum, but in a very active market with a lot of competition of other people looking for the same. So if you filter bad metrics out, you're gonna miss all the hidden gems that the others will miss too. So in this context, we don't filter any metrics out except for DA below 15 and Hrefs DR 0 to 2. Anything else can be good and is often good if the actual links are legit, if it's not spam. So filtering out will actually prevent you from seeing what the others are missing, which in such a competitive environment as the search for expired domains is, will make you miss a lot of the good cheap stuff.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So what activities do you take to appear natural? It's emerging and consolidating brands happening all the time, so Google needs to be careful not to penalize the legit guys. So basically, what actions are you taking to make trio ones look legit, I guess, is the question.
I've seen a lot of actions, but maybe the more interesting question is how can you redirect a lot of domains to one domain and still appear natural? Because for one domain you can do a lot of preparation. You can take a domain that's very suitable, same niche, most of the links are leading to the home page, and then you can start making the two websites slowly in time more and more the same, and maybe in the end put the exact same content and then put a canonical and then make the redirect. So if you have time and you're only focusing on one big redirect, then and choosing a very good domain for this, very relevant and with links leading to the homepage, then I think it more likely than not it will work very well. The question is, if you have a huge website and let's say it's something very competitive that doesn't have a lot of good, super relevant domains lying around, if it's gambling or loans or something that you don't really get a lot of good expiring domains on those, then what do you do? So the more interesting is, can you actually do some strategy where you can redirect more domains? I've seen a lot of people redirect to a page where they say they acquired the domain or the business or something. In the case that I was closely monitoring, this didn't work, maybe because the domain was very strong but not relevant. So and also there was no preparation. So I think even in this case, preparation is the key. But also I've seen another strategy that was very successful. I think we discussed this website that was doing it. One of the most the poster child of redirect success. That's a redirect about 70 domains to pages that were subdomains, and then made a single link from the subdomain to the main domain. And on the subdomain, they restored the old content. So it was basically a redirect from the same content to the same content, and then a link that was now an internal link because it was a subdomain. And I've also seen people redirect to let's say blogspots or other properties with a brand name and then link from there. There are actually a lot of unexplored options in this space. Some are very safe, like redirecting to a blogspot. The worst thing that can happen is something that can happen with a blogspot that you don't care about, but then you get an enormously strong link from there. So if you really have a good budget for experiments, I think still redirects are amazing because they come with so little overhead in terms of creating contents or all the hiding that you have with a PBN game. It's not so relevant there. You just need a budget for domains and you can just skyrocket.
I mean, you set aside with 70. I've seen sites that have done extremely successfully with hundreds, and we're talking 200-300 redirects sometimes. And what I see do work a lot. So sometimes if the redirect, if a domain is super relevant to a particular page, they would often redirect to that page. But very often I also see that, they just redirect to a page called, we bought xyz.com, and then they basically describe like a little bit about that business or whatever. And then they just have one link on that domain, either again going to the front page to get all the juice to the main page, or actually like again linking down to a particular page that's sort of relevant to the topic or relevant to what they're writing about the site, right? But yeah, I've seen sites with hundreds of domains pointing at them, right? And yeah, definitely, it definitely works. Again, I would say I'm sure there's also a lot of risks, right? And there's definitely also some of these domains, particularly in Google updates, that don't fare as well. But again, the whole point is like the cost, right? Like if you buy 100 domain on auction or something, or sorry, not an auction, like expired domains directly, like you can get them for $10 each or whatever, right? Now, if you buy them, like if you want some solid ones and you go and buy like from SEO.Domains or some of the other providers, obviously you pay a little bit more, but the cost, again, like many domains cost less than a good link, right? And I mean, we have sometimes sat down and actually looked at, if we had to buy these 200 links this domain have, what would we spend? And,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not comparable.
It's not even comparable in any way. No, I mean, you're talking just thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So, yeah. Right. Do the practice of domain hijacking or grabbing a domain in its early expiry state possible, or is it occurring?
So hijacking is basically a bad term, so I don't think that's actually what you mean. But there are two things that can happen. Either someone can hold the domain before its expiration. It's usually the registrar. For example, GoDaddy auctions is comprised not by domains owned by GoDaddy, but the domains that GoDaddy knows that they can own if the owner doesn't renew them in the last days. So they auction them. It's in their terms. They can do it. No one really. Well, ICANN it's a bit of a gray area for ICANN, because then the 30-day redemption period where you can restore for a higher fee is basically gone for the registrant. But the domain cycle is built in such a way that the registrar can keep the domain and renew it for themselves to resell it or auction it before this period, and then after this period, the registrant, the owner of the domain, still has some rights, but they're trashed in the agreement between the registrar and the registrant. So no one really complains about this. So the registrar in most general TODs like .com, .net.org can keep the domain and auction it, and this is how places like GoDaddy auctions and Namejet work. In some cases, when the auction finishes, but then the sale fails, it's because the original owner renewed the domain, which they are still allowed to do during the days of the auction. But it rarely happens, because then there were like 20 days of downtime, and whoever wants to keep a website, they usually notice way before this. So registrars can keep the domain. Also, there are cases where some older registrant can keep the domain. In most European countries, you have the options of if you are the actual holder of the domain, you don't need any registrar access to get it back. So this means that if someone sells a UK domain but is still the owner because the buyer didn't bother to change who is, and then the domain starts expiring, or at any other moment, for that matter, just the actually legal owner of the domain can just take it back, renew it, change name servers, pull it to another registrar. They can do whatever they want through the registry directly. This is made as a protection against bad registrars. So if you fall out with your registrar, you always have another option. You don't really have this in .com without a lot of bureaucracy. And so there's the very common option with .coms where the registrar holds and sells the domains. In some cases, the domain can be stopped from expiring because someone who turns out was still legally the owner can take it back. Also, all the expiring domains, they go into a lot of drop lists like expireddomains.net and so on. So if the domain is really, really valuable, there are a lot of people who try to contact the owner and try to convince him not to let the domain expire and instead sell it to them. So if you see the domain at the last minute before dropping, changing ownership and not dropping, it's something completely normal. And when the domain finally drops, this is where we come in many TODs, trying to register the domain. This is not a game of hours or minutes or seconds. It's usually milliseconds. There are TODs where we send one request every millisecond or so. And I think we have made already more than a billion requests trying to catch domains since we are catching. So this is not something you can beat manually or just with coding, because you need a lot of accreditations, which cost money. Also, even if you write a very good code, you need to buy a special server close to this registry. So we have servers all over the world close to different registries. For example, when we catch domains in UK, we buy a server as close as possible to Oxford, which is where the nominate registry is, or at least it has to be in the same internet exchange, so you get 1-2 milliseconds of ping. If you get 5 milliseconds of ping to the registry, you're too slow. So it's that competitive actually, and it's so competitive that even with all this technology and resources that we have, we still cannot catch .com domains. So there it's a whole other level of investment you need, and servers, and basically even relationship with VeriSign. I think that you need in order to compete with Dropcatch.com and Snap Names. The investment in icon fees alone that Dropcatch are paying is, I think, something like $4 million a year. This is only in fees. So without all the companies to create the accreditations and the servers and all of this.
That is, yeah, that's a bit of money. Right, next question. Have you had success merging multiple domains? Want to consolidate efforts spent across multiple projects in the same niche? Kind of merge all at once, or one after another. So that sounds like not actually expired domains, but that actually sounds like sort of existing.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I guess, I mean, we've definitely had some experience with that. And we've been in exactly that situation where, we've like, hey, we have all these projects and, what about merging them? From my experience, I would definitely say you only want to do it if they're in a similar niche, all right? So for example, if you have a site about fishing and a site about hunting, that might work. But if you have a site about fishing and a site about wheelchairs, I absolutely wouldn't go ahead and merge them, right? I think authority generally plays a bigger role, and then really authority in, dominating your niche, if you will. So I'd say, like, if you have a sub niche and a main niche. So for example, if you have, again, if we take fishing as a main niche, and then you have, bestfishingrod.com, those you can relatively easy merge without too much trouble, right? And often you can actually get a benefit from having the two sites merged. So I'd say a lot of the time when we merge sites in the same niche, we actually see a net positive from it. But yeah, not sure if you've had any experience with that, Kalin.
In my experience, only if they're super relevant, because one of the best value that you have in your website is the link juice, and you definitely lose some link juice by merging. Already they have something that just goes down the drain. So you're gonna lose some of your valuable link juice in merging. Maybe you increase your trust when the website becomes bigger with more content and with more links, of course, when you merge them. But you really should think it will pay off. Also, if the websites are so close and so relevant, maybe you can get 2 spots in Google instead of 1, if you just develop both websites independently.
Yeah. Right. What are the black hat concepts related to the domains and how to avoid them for our safety? So I guess that's if people have been using some kind of black hat stuff on an expired domain. So how do you look for that, and what sort of things does people do with domains?
Okay, so the two main concepts of this, on page and off page. On page, it's basically, did the domain have an owner as bad as you before? So you want to take the domain and recycle it for its link juice, either rebuild it or redirect it or redirect the link somewhere. Did someone try to do this before? And if they did, how much did it damage the domain, if it did damage it? So if there was another owner before, the easiest way to check when you're checking a lot of domains is who is. So here is the rule. For example, you're looking at a UK domain. You see that it's registered 2005. It didn't have another owner. Because in UK, in order for the domain to change owner, it must drop and then be registered by someone else. Okay, let's say you're looking at a .com domain. You see that it's registered in some registrar that you're not familiar with, but let's say it's Gandhi or some European register, some not a big registrar, like not GoDaddy, definitely not GoDaddy or Enom or Tukaus or one of the ones that go to auctions, and it's registered in 2005. Then you're safe again, because you know that this registrar, like Gandhi, doesn't have auctions. So then again, it couldn't have changed owner without expiring, so there was no owner before. But then you see a domain that was registered in 2005 and it's in GoDaddy. Now that's bad, because in GoDaddy it could have changed owner through GoDaddy auctions without expiring. So then you have the red flag that maybe there was another owner. So you check invoke the whois, because that's extremely easy. What other thing is easy to check in invoke? Not so easy, but relatively easy, without, automatically, not manually. It's the indexation. Is it indexed in Google? So if it's indexed in Google, most of your fields should go off. Even if it was a PBN or had Japanese spam or something, if it's indexed in Google, that's the most important flag that Google thinks it's still kind of fine, because really bad stuff gets de-indexed. So if Google catches a PBN in the old days, they were always de-indexing it. And then this ban sticks to the domain as the famous pure spam penalty. And then it's no longer in the index. Even if you buy the domain, it won't get in the index, and you have to get reconsiderations. And I think one domain, if it had a pure spam penalty once, then I'm not sure that I would use this domain again. Of course, it may work. It may perfectly work in some more spam niches, so for redirects or something more black hat. But if it's on Google's radar forever, I think, if it ever had a pure spam penalty. But if it was a PBN and it didn't have any penalty, then how can we know that Google even knew this was a PBN? So Google may think that this was just unblocked, because Google de-indexes PBNs, right? So if the domain is still indexed, this is a very good sign. If the domain is not indexed, it's a very, very bad sign. But of course, you need to look at the downtime. So it was a huge website up to half a year ago, and then it's not indexed. It's pretty suspicious that no pages at all from, let's say, thousands didn't remain in the index, because usually for larger websites, a lot of pages remain in the index because Google values them for some reason. Most drop, but not all. So if you do site column, you find some pages. If the website wasn't down for a long time and it's not indexed, then it's suspicious. There are other reasons why a website can not be indexed. Maybe in the end it had some error like 404 or 500 or something, and then Google de-indexes it very quickly because you just see the error. Or maybe the most stupid reason from all is that you put or someone else puts just a WordPress blog with hello world, and Google de-indexes those because they're all okay, just one of 10 millions installed but not developed WordPress blog. This doesn't need to be in the index. That's not a penalty. So if you see you just put a WordPress blog with hello world and before you start your PBN, and then you see it's the index, that's not a penalty. Don't worry, just put your content in it, gets back into the index. So this is how you should interpret indexation data. And if you don't get enough information from whois and index about on page, then bad news, you have to lose time on manual checks in archive fork, which is very slow. And but there you can find anything. You can find what was there before, and of course you can look for bad signals about the form of PBNs and other shady stuff. Keep in mind that a lot of PBNs block the bots of archive fork. So if you see 403 error, the forbidden one, which means the archive bot was blocked, it's a very bad sign. A very bad combination that almost certainly means a penalty is domain not in the index and 403 in the archive recently, which basically means the PBN, the bot, some mass PBN, so that's easy to get the index, because if you have a one or two like a PBN of one or two websites, you probably won't bother to block the bots of archive.org. But if you have 1,000, then for sure you're going to block all bots that can reveal something. And then if it's 403 blocked and not indexed, very suspicious. And so this basically covers the on page. And for the off page, well, things are a bit more relaxed here because you don't control the links to the website. So if it's not total spam, and if you have good links, and maybe sometimes the domains have good links and bad links. For example, you have great links, but there was a forum and it was hacked, or the website was hacked, or something other bad happened. But if you have good links, you can mostly ignore this spammy stuff that happens on some sub pages. But usually that's not the case. Usually you either have only good links and everything is perfect, or you have just crappy links and everything is total spam. And it's quite easy to spot these two apart. So if you see the good links, then just go ahead if also everything is good on page.
Cool. And yeah, I would say as well, like we love looking at archive.org just to see. So what I'm mostly interested about, so let's say you're looking about, an original domain about baby food or whatever. Now, if someone of them built a domain and went in a totally different direction with it, that's definitely it's definitely something I'll look at, because that can definitely confuse the intent with Google. But yeah, I love looking at archive.org when we have, like, again, it's the last piece of the process because it is manual, but we definitely like looking at what happened to the domain, since the original site was there. So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing, which is that this is why I recommend when you build PBNs not to go for the cheapest domains, because then you get a lot of overhead for each domain. You need to check a lot of stuff, and then you need to build and buy content and do a lot of hosting and do a lot of stuff to get not so much link juice in the end. When you get a more expensive domain, let's say a $100 domain, like not too expensive, but a domain with good link juice, with for let's say 100 referring domains, $100 domain, then all this overhead gets proportionally much less. So the idea is that all the link juice comes from the domain, and all of the overhead is from the hiding from Google. So you want to invest more in the link juice and less in the hiding. So this is, I think, a key for building a cost-effective PBN nowadays, when you have to invest a lot more in hiding. Back in the old days, you can do everything with just available domains, because there were more and better available domains, and you didn't need to hide so much. But now things are a bit different. So I wouldn't recommend the cheapest domains for PBN.
Cool. Awesome. So as a Facebook user saying, I verified an expired domain in GSC about 4 or 5 months ago. It lost backlinks being tracked in Ahrefs. I just ran them through an indexer and it's starting to find the lost ones, but not done. Do I need to wait before I redirect? So basically, what he's saying is that the domains are not being tracked in Ahrefs. And then does he need to wait before doing a redirect?
I think you shouldn't bother about Ahrefs when doing redirects. They can links can be missing in Ahrefs for a whole lot of reasons, like their bot being blocked, or you shouldn't really, if you know the links are actually there for real, like if you go and check and the link is actually there, then you are right, not Ahrefs. in this situation. So if the question is about if you know that everything is ready for redirect and just something doesn't seem right on Ahrefs, but you know it's there, it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and I would say as well, like Ahrefs isn't Google, right? So it doesn't really matter what Ahrefs sees. Really, what's interesting is if Google see it. Now, you can obviously see some of your links in GSC, right? But yeah, the interest is if the link exists, and sometimes what can be very interesting. I mean, if you look at Ahrefs and if you look at the historical versus the live, sometimes you'll see links in live that look like they've been lost. But if you actually go and check them, they might actually still be there. So I've definitely experienced that, on my team have.
Absolutely. Just every time the bot gets blocked, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah. So, okay, good question. So next one here. Is there any instant solution currently for GSA blasts being done on our sites badly? Before links appear on tools like Moz and spam score already increased. Quick method for detecting links to disavow them instantly.
Also, I guess this is a negative SEO question.
Yeah.
If I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Not really an expert on these link cleanups and stuff, but I also wouldn't say that spam score is a good metric. It's very correlational, and I don't really think that. Actually, I think Ahrefs will, as the fastest scroller, will pick up the bad links first. And also there are some things that are so like in the fringes somewhere, some spam, maybe profile spam and stuff like this, that Ahrefs wouldn't index it. And in this case, yeah, if you need something that is really its target is indexing the spammiest corners of the internet, something like link research tools would probably be a better choice for cleanups, although of course it's much more expensive. But also maybe the Majestic Historic Index could work into this. I don't know. But you need something big, something really big. Ahrefs doesn't want to index everything. I can tell you that for sure. So yeah, but if you are in the position where someone is GSA blasting you off the SERPs, then I guess what you should do is either make your website higher authority, so you shouldn't care about this anymore. So you have enough good links that some bad links won't hurt you that much, or just find out who is doing it and try to convince him not to do it. Because if someone is trying to actively destroy you all day long, then you're gonna have a very uphill battle, no matter what you do.
Yeah, so I have my solution is very simple, and it's called Rick Lomas. So every time I have a site with a bunch of dodgy links, I call up Rick and I pay him a tiny amount of money to tell me about all the bad links on my sites. And basically he goes through all the different sources he can find and so on, and basically, yeah, tell me what sites, what links to disavow and so on. I would say with bigger sites, I do that on more regular occasion. Most sites, I don't really do it unless I see that I've had some spam against me. I would say, I mean, honestly, my experience is that most of the time when people try to negative SEO you, it end up helping you instead. Now, typically what happens is, like, for example, with GSA is you get a bunch of links that helps, and you probably get a bunch that retract a little bit, but very often, most people are very bad at doing negative SEO. So because of that, often you actually see a boost when it happens. But I would say I primarily look at it if I see a site going down and I then notice a whole bunch of dodgy links, right? Again, Google is also just better and better at just automatically detecting them. So, you know, sometimes I'm hoping and praying that just Google see that it's a pile of not so good links and take care of them. So, but yeah.
And also where they edit all at the same time, which Google can see, it's pretty obvious that something shady is happening and should be ignored.
Yeah, definitely. Right, next question is, sorry, it away here. So, are PBNs still relevant?
Oh, definitely. Definitely relevant because there are two reasons, I think. Okay, I'll even make them three that PBNs will, and I think always will be super relevant. Reason number one is that a well-done PBN is indistinguishable from real websites, especially if it's done with way-back restores. It's impossible for Google to see on some really algorithmic structural level that something shady is going on, which is not true for guest posts, by the way. So if you have most of your links from guest posts, there are ways that that Google can see just looking at the complete link graph of everything, because if someone was willing to sell your guest post, they were most likely willing to sell guest posts to others too. So Google can see all the links, all the vectors on the internet, and try to figure out with a pretty good certainty if they really care about it, of course, that something shady is going on. But PBNs, like homepage links of restored websites, especially with banners, it's indistinguishable from a lot of natural stuff going on the internet. Of course, you should mix it up with other stuff, but it's pretty solid. So reason number one is that it's very sustainable long term. Reason number two is it's very financially sustainable long term, because you invest a good amount of money in the start, true, but then you get a lot of value all the time without any need to invest more. Like just you don't need to add new content to a PBN. That's my opinion, and you just need to renew the domain, and the hosting is just pennies. So you get a lot of value, and whenever you are short on cash flow for some reason, which can easily happen, for example, when you're starting from scratch building an affiliate empire, but you're still in the beginning, you can just sell some links, which is instant cash and also diversity of your outgoing links. So it's win-win-win. Of course, you can try. You want to be relevant, but not to your direct competitor. But it's not so hard at all. Yeah, so PBNs I think are super good idea still, and the fact that they're not so trendy now with the focus going to guest posts is even better, because the most trendy thing is the one that Google will hit first.
Yeah, so one thing I would say is that what I've definitely seen is that most people are getting more creative with PBNs, right? Like PBN used to literally just be a blog roll on a front page, and you know, if manual Google reviewers are looking at that, it's often pretty obvious, right? But what I see more and more people actually building out their sites and making them in, you know, putting a couple of affiliate products and, you know, having like a front page that actually looks like a front page. And then they try and place the sort of main links they want to link to within that content, right? And I think that like it makes it a lot harder to see that it's an actual PBN. And yeah, so I would say for I have a friend that definitely don't do blog rolls anymore, but make them look like more sort of real sites, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. One more here. What's the best way to build content for PBN? I'm thinking of using GPT-3 to generate the content instead of outsourcing to writers to save cost.
I'm not really an expert on content creation, and I'm not familiar with these new AI writers, but they will probably get good very fast. So yeah, content will may become an easier thing to solve in the near future if it hasn't already happened. But I think the best way is to restore the old website if you don't see any potential legal problem. But you can do this when you choose the domain. You can evaluate, so you can ignore domains that are connected to finance, law, or like avoid anything that could bring a suspicion about phishing, because then you can get into really serious trouble. Even if you restore an NGO website but you have a bank account for donation, then you're in trouble already. So if you just stay away from this stuff. You can just restore anything, and then you get a lot of content for free, and it's more trustworthy for Google. So I think that writing new content for PBNs should be more like a last resort option. Let's say you're in a niche where there's no good expired domains, like casino or loans. Then you have to create new content if you want relevant content. But only then. In all other cases, you can just restore.
Yeah. So what I would say as well is, I mean, the whole thing is PBNs are not particularly expensive, right? So the way I look at it is like, I mean, if we go back 5 years, we used to put 40, 50, 60 posts on every PBN, but I don't really like doing that anymore. Like, I think nowadays we put maybe 5 to 10 links. And as I said, I mean, my friends put 5 to 10 links, and again, often they have like a set homepage, and they fit the links into relevant places with that. I personally, I look at these, again, these block rolls where you have one PBN with 50 links. I mean, for me, they become very much like guest post farms. So it's very obvious, like if in one post you're linking to a pharmacy, and the next post you're linking to a cheese factory, and then a lawyer, it becomes very obvious what's happening. And I'm a firm believer in, I'll much rather build less PBNs, but build them higher quality and a higher value, right? So I'll much rather, go out and buy a domain for $500 or whatever, then build it up and, have 10, 15, maybe up to 20 links that are super valuable from it. But that's the way I look at it nowadays, at least. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Like, I think that the days of these spammy blogs about everything is over, more or less.
Unless, again, you're in other destinations. I mean, definitely in US, right? But I think, I mean, there's still countries where they work fine, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How does Google determine the domains with what niche it relates to? Is it all the content on it, or domains linking to it, or some other factors?
Well, no one really knows, I think, but the content is the main factor. The links, they're like a raw, like when you get a link with some anchor, you get pushed up like hard for anything connected to this anchor. That's why we use link with anchors. And also, if you get links from like trustworthy websites on a certain topic, you also build a topical authority on this topic. But I think the main thing will always be your own content.
Yeah. Yeah, agree. So, Kalin, I can see we only have 1 minute to the next speaker start. So I will let us finish off very quickly, just a couple of points. So first of all, again, if you are looking for expired domains, SEO.Domains. And if you use the code SEO Mastery, you will get a 15% discount throughout this summit. So a great opportunity to get a good discount on some amazing domains. And likewise, Kalin actually have a presentation that's also around this topic, and that's on day 3 on March the 10th at 4 p.m. EST. Also around domaining, we actually have a couple more conversations around these kind of topics, and we have a speaker on. Just make sure I find it here. Tommy Butler on March the 12th at 2 p.m. EST, who talks about domaining more specifically. So if you're interested in domains and making money on domains and so on, that could definitely be relevant to you. Now, there is in the free Facebook group, there is an AMA thread as well. So if you do have any more questions around domains and so on to Kalin, feel free to post in there. And we would, I'm sure he would love to answer all of your great questions. So
yeah, sure.
Thank you, Kalin, very, very much for joining. That was awesome having you here.
Thank you too.
Welcome. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for joining.